What the Heck's your source for Warhammer Underworlds in under 30 kniggets, or shrubberies as you choose. I'm your host, Davy. With me, I have Skylar. How you doing, Skylar?
Doing pretty great.
And Brian, what's going on?
What's up?
We are coming to you for some context. We're recording on the 19th of December. You will be hearing this, if you listen on the day of release, on the 24th of December. So we're getting right towards the end of the year. This will actually be our last episode of 2022. We're going to come at you. We've, as promised, have a battle report, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to have Velmorn versus the Looncourt with our patented TM audio bat rep style. But before we do that, we're going to do our usual segments. We got some community shout outs. Gentlemen, who's got something they want to shout out?
Well, I'll just put out a reminder for our tournament on January 21st here in Madison, Wisconsin. If you're in the area or within driving distance, please consider coming out. It's going to be a championship format, best of 3 rounds.
Yep, we'd love to have you. Noble Knight Games. We'll have a link in the show notes or on the website where you can check that out and see the event itself. Skylar, you got anything?
Yeah, I have an article here by R77 or Ramzeet77 on Discord. I'm sure I butchered that. It is his second article for the game, and he is tackling Sons of Velmorn as well. So I figured since we were playing Sons of Velmorn for the bat rep today, that it would be nice topically. If you want to see another viewpoint on the Sons of Velmorn, I definitely recommend checking that out. And Brian, I seem to remember you talking about LVO at all. Did you have those details to shout out LVO coming up here?
Yeah, another shout out for LVO, one of the big conventions here in the States. They do have an Underworlds event. They have 2, actually. So they have a Rivals format on Friday, January 27th. Our best of 1 matches on that Friday. And then they have a championship event on the Saturday, January 28th, and a cutoff for the second day on January 29th for the championship of that championship format Grand Clash. LVO, Las Vegas Open here in the States at the end of January. Check it out.
Yeah. For me, I had a little bit of an off-the-wall article I wanted to highlight. It's from Mandarga's Underdog Certainty of Death blog. It's not his most recent post, but he had a teaser thing about the Haunted City. And I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's like a custom season, but it's set in the city of Mousillon, which is a cursed city in Bretonia in the old world of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So I don't know what he's up to, but he put some really cool flavor text in there. And it seems like maybe it would be like an Underworlds season, but set in the fantasy battle universe, back in the world that was, so to speak. Anyway, not sure what he's got going on, but I got my eye on you, Mandarga. That wraps it for community shoutouts. I do have a personal community shout out, and that is an apology for the jarring audio clip I put in for an editor's note. Apparently, I about shocked a couple people right off the road. So I'll take a little more care with my schmancy editing, such as it is, on the last one. So if you are one of those that were woken from a near slumber from our soothing voices by the jump of music, then I apologize. But in the meantime, what the heck has been going on with you? I'll kick it off. I have been doing a little prep for this podcast, put together something, went looking for Velmorn tips, and put that together and played this. Got out for some league, got to try out. I usually gravitate towards the war bands that are a little, I don't know, like not prime in the meta, but I decided to go all in and try some Hexbane, and I've been really kind of throwing some haymakers with them. They've been real good for me so far. Brian, what have you been up to?
I'm still kind of like warband homeless, I say. Still trying to figure out who I'm maining next. I was playing around with the Assassin Rats for a while, and I think I can put them to rest. It's just not my style. I'm trying to find the kind of aggro I can be happy with in this aggro world. So moving
Tell me,
on.
what is it about the assassin rats that is not quite your style?
Uh, the objective hand just got really clunky. I often found success in killing the leader, but it just was always clunky in terms of things. It didn't feel good. I want an objective deck to flow smoothly. It's something that really kept me engaged with Dread Pageant is I could build a couple different ways, and each one of those ways still felt smooth, and I just had to iron out a few kinks. Hey,
Okay.
But the rats, like, even when the objectives were arguably perfect for the faction, it didn't feel good. Like I was having to hold punches to score objectives, and it was like it felt contradictory. I don't know. Maybe I just needed to put more time into them, but Looncourt's out now, so I'm going to be trying that. Not only that, but I've also been just working on this Looncourt here during our episode. I got into a conversation with the Alex G, famous man from Chicagoland. We've both been mulling over ideas, and it's been fun to... we both are in the same vein, but doing similar but different ideas. But I want to do Gettonian Knights, so I've already sent you both a image of kind of the inspiration, right? So here is what I've done to the king himself, Grinkrak. Images coming up now.
Okay.
So I have chopped off his esteemed hood and replaced it with a crown of mushrooms.
Beautiful. All right.
All right.
I'll see if I include this in the blog post for the episode. So if you're wanting to see what we're seeing, go to themortalrealms.com and find this episode, and it will be in there.
Yes, and for those curious, all of the bits used in the mushroom crown are available within the set, so no external bits needed. I did have to replace the biggest mushroom off the halberd with a spikes from somewhere. But then I also have done the helmets on the 4 knights. So we have... I have added helmet adornments or hood ornaments to several of the knights. And the Bretonnian knights, if you look, have a braided like circlet around their helmet that goes at the base of these adornments. And I'm going to make them spiraled color. I'm going to do like a bifurcated color scheme on each one of them, each one a different color, and go nuts with the painting. And I've also raised the wonky lance to have to be upright with a banner streaming from it, majestically flowing like a resplendent knight cavalry.
These are great, Brian. I'm excited for people to see these completed, and I think they're good enough that you are locked into Looncourt. You're not allowed to take something else.
I just hope that I don't despise every moment playing as them. So far, it's been wonky, but I do still have other plans. I have there's 2 fighters missing from these photos, so we'll see what I can come up with for those 2.
All right, I love it. We won't tell Aaron that you've been converting on company time, but
but aside from that, I did equip a ring. I got married last week on Friday, so.
Yeah.
I am finally made the podcast complete. All 5 of us are now married, so I'm not the odd duckling out. So it was a good time. The event went well, and happy wife, happy life, I guess.
That leads right into me on this end. Best manning for you alongside the other co-host, Josh. That's right. This man could not choose and decided on 2 best men. Wore it proudly, called himself a diva that needed 2 best men.
I played Dread
We all
Pageant.
think
What
it.
did you
I'm glad
expect?
Yeah, it's center of attention.
And I can agree that it was an excellent time. Or
awesome.
Condone, contest. There's a word there. Stamp of awesome.
Corroborate.
It was nice. There it is. It was an excellent time.
Cool.
So on the underworld side of things for me, I am still enjoying Miari's Purifiers. Current iteration, Miari's Pingifiers. I started picking them up before putting Nether Maze down, and haven't let go.
It's
I'm
very rude, people.
I'm a sucker for Elvish warbands, so I was bound to give them some time at some point.
The Looncourt do have pointy ears, Skylar.
It's not just pointy ears, but it definitely, it is a modifier in their modifier in their favor.
Yeah.
But with the Miari's Pingifiers build I've been running, I think it's time to finally put paint down on these models, and I'm gonna say it here so that the podcast can hold me to it. It's my next paint job, and I am excited to approach. Like, I have a scheme all calculated out. It's going to be based on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Ooh.
And each of the 4 are going to be assigned a tribe from Avatar. So, for example, we've got Bahanar. He's going to be Earth tribe. We've got Sanela, who's going to be my Fire tribe. Miari himself, Air tribe. I'm actually going to try shaving off his tail and putting an actual airbender arrow on his head, filing that down, or doing a head swap, one of the two. I think I'll start by trying to file it and see how terribly wrong that goes. And then last but not least, Aileen is going to be my water tribe fighter. So it took me a year to paint Skate's Wild Hunt. We'll see how long it takes me here.
Yeah, it's fine.
They do look great, so I look forward to another warband done. Probably have them ready by our tournament in January, yeah?
Adepticon 2024.
Was that a 4 or 5?
Hey, there's one less fighter. It should take me one less fighter than a year.
One less cat.
Exactly. Half a fighter. I love you, Lehan. All right. Moving on.
Yeah, that'll bring us on to the main topic, which is our battle report. Brian and I lined up Velmorn versus Looncourt, and that's by special request of Console. One of our listeners wanted to see that particular matchup, and your wish is our command, provided it meets our whims and requirements. So we set to work. Brian was already wanting to try out Looncourt, and that pretty much left me with Velmorn. So cool. I tried a few things, and then, if I'm being honest, I jumped on the Vassal Discord and hopped in. There's a thread for every warband on there, so it's a good way to get a deep dive. And I went there wasn't a lot of recent builds in there, but I did find something that Chad had put together. Quite liked that, so used that as a basis for mine. But Skylar, I think we're going to have you run things from here, and we'll answer to your commands from here on out.
All right, here we go. Grabbing the wheel. Get ready for a bumpy ride, everybody. So, first thing I want to talk about is I want to go into your builds with you. So I'm going to kick off with Brian. Tell me a little bit about choices you made towards Looncourt. What's the goals of the deck? What cards stand out to you as key to those goals? And anything else you want to tell me about kind of your decision-making process in your initial build here?
So these are the decisions I made. I'm not saying they're good decisions, but what stood out to me was the hold objective 1, 2, and 3. They have a couple cards in faction that do that, and I was like, hey, let's just go all in. I come from Zarbag, so let's try and see what the new goblins can do. So I went with the hold 1, 2, and 3 in faction cards, as well as tactical supremacy 1, 2. I was half tempted to play hold objective 1 and 2 also.
Whoa.
I was like, pull back from that.
Yeah.
But then, so that kind of informed a lot of the decisions going forward. I also had supremacy and path to victory in there. But But that meant if I really want to hold 1 and 2, then I was also taking Dark Inversion, Drifting Tides, Confusion, the usual hold objective tech. Couple other things. I did try to explore the quest cards a lot. I wound up taking like 5 quest cards in my surges. Or like, I think there was 5 quest cards, but 5 of the Looncourt surges were in my surge pool. That comes up later. And the what was the other tech I went into? I wanted to do hold objective and counter punch. So I brought blind gamble, opportunistic reprisal, and stab, stab, stab again. So I was trying to make sure that once he invaded, I was going to get effective hits.
Yeah, opportunistic reprisal being that one that if I have a staggered fighter, that do I have to miss or just make an attack?
So it's a reaction after you make an attack action on one of my fighters, and your fighter is already staggered.
Okay.
But what's neat about that one is I choose any one of my friendly fighters that has range to them, and they make an attack against your fighter that just made the attack action, who's also staggered.
Very nice. Yeah.
So when you were building, what plot deck did you go with?
I went with Fearsome Fortress. Wanted to test that out because that's where opportunistic reprisal was. There was honestly a few cards in there. I don't have the deck in front of me because I did make changes. So, but Fearsome Fortress looked fun. I think it has more potential for certain warbands, and I wanted to see what I could do with it. Just play with the new content, new toys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll ask you more about those swaps a little later.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Davey, you're on the spot. We kind of heard how you arrived at your basis for your Velmorn deck, but what did you keep? What did you like about it? And what kind of key cards go towards your goals here?
So what I latched on to with Chad's build was that he elected to pair them with Tooth and Claw. Tooth and Claw is a great deck for these guys if you are really trying to chase the lots of dice to get the crits to inspire to trigger those Grievouses and that sort of thing. On top of that, some of it's occurring at Gambit speed with internal surrender and such. So those really kind of open up the early round options. Add to that a couple of illusions which help your round one. There's False Vigor, a real nice one for the Death Warbands, an extra move and an extra dice. And then Phantom Darts comes in nice for this warband too, because it gives you the chance to get a supported attack with positioning, or if Velmorn's already gone, then any of his Graveguard can then be making a fairly accurate ranged attack, and kind of fish for crits to get both Velmorn and the attacker inspired. Those paired with the warband has a couple of pretty decent in-house end phases. Here I'm thinking of Protected Inheritance, which is 2 enemy fighters are out of action and you have 1 objective in your territory, and Hereditary Claims, which is you have 2 objectives and 1 of them is not in your territory, or 1 or more is not in your territory. So that those are relatively modest hold objective style ones, and so they pair nicely with Path to Victory as well. It gives you a little extra purpose with Velmorn. Lets you activate Velmorn initially to move Velmorn onto an objective early, which lets him trigger his Deathly Command ability and get his command counter on, which then supports everybody else and hopefully cascades and helps your accuracy. But it makes that less of a wasted activation. So those are kind of the things I liked about that, and lean into extra dice and kind of get them some help early on when they need it, and then once they're inspired, they don't need it as much.
Do you lean into any amount of Surge Engine tech in there?
Well, there's a real crazy one. I had to talk to Chad about this. It actually includes. It does include Praetorian, which is the one that lets him rush up to if somebody's attacking uh, his dad and attacking Velmorn. He can come and be the target of that instead, which is pretty cool. And it can trigger multiple times. And then there's a weird one in there, horrifying armor, and this is -1 wounds to a minimum of 1, and then -1 dice from adjacent enemy fighters' attack actions. So that kind of pairs pretty nicely with Praetorian, where you can run in and make somebody less accurate. It also has the weird corner case thing of making Jedrin not a large fighter, and so if you do end up giving him up, then you don't lose 2 glory for the bounty, just the 1. And then if you happen to have it on Jedrin for the purposes of partial resurrection, or a different fighter for the purposes of, oh, actually, check that. Rise Again does not have to be used on a Graveguard. So Jedrin can get brought back by partial resurrection. Um, and then when he comes back, he's already got to be vulnerable anyway, so it doesn't really matter what his max health is. So that lets Jedrin come back with partial resurrection or Rise Again with that defensive buff on, and it's a kind of irrelevant wound penalty.
Fascinating. I like that tech.
Yep.
Nice.
Rid.
Rude indeed. Especially when those two upgrades get a chance to combo together. Like they're strong enough to stand on their own and be justifiable in the deck on their own. But when they end up in that pairing, that combo is probably quite rude.
Yeah.
Thanks for going over the decks, guys. Let's jump into your first game here. So, or at least a conversation regarding your first game. So you ended up playing 2.
Yep.
And the first one was rather brief. So it's going to be the second game that we largely cover today. But there were some lessons learned from the first game. So when you guys started that game, who got the opportunity to place boards? Or situate boards?
Yeah, I won the roll-off. I knew he was Fearsome Fortress, but I didn't at this point know exactly what way he was going. I thought there was a possibility that he was leaning into the no one's territory and neutral territory. So I thought I would maybe try to reduce how much no man's land there was, and so I gave him boards in order to longboard it, basically, really limit what was available there. And then as the added bonus of Looncourt, we know to be a pretty slow warband that's going to fill all the hexes. It's one thing if you're a slow warband, but you only have 3 fighters, because then you can kind of load yourself towards one end, but their combat strength is kind of spread all across a number of fighters. And you can make some of those irrelevant by putting the longboard. So that's what I tried to do. To my chagrin, I could tell by the way he was placing objectives. I'm like, I don't think he actually cares about neutral territory. And ironically, I do, because I have, I don't specifically care about that, but I do have the hereditary claims, which is easiest to score if I'm holding 1 in no man's land. That's the nearest I can do. And spoiler alert, I'm not very fast either. And so I need a little bit of help to get, that's my best odds there. So as I was watching Brian kind of set them in his territory, I was like, okay, I'm going to be the one to have to place something in no man's land, which I did. And then Brian was using the Fearsome Fortress plot card. You got to place a feature token, one of the availables, right?
Yep. Yeah, if I remember correctly, the way the boards wound up, and the way the objectives wound up, and as I said, I was teching into hold objectives 1, 2, and 3, so heavy priority on those numbers coming up in my objectives or in my territory. Because I was planning to sit back, I wasn't planning to invade much. I believe objective 2 wound up being the center of my triangle, because I was able to get a triangle off in my territory. So having 3 objectives securely back in my territory where Davy couldn't mess with my deploying the objectives.
Yeah.
And objective 1 wound up being in no man's land placed by Davy. I think the other two were 4 and 5 so
Yeah, that
basically when I put the feature token down, I just put down the snare hex or the
yeah.
snare, yeah, to maybe offer a dumb idea for him to go and stand on it, being the one feature token available in No Man's Land. Um, might help set up stuff like opportunistic reprisal.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that we're in a longboard situation, there's less ability to kind of avoid something like that. You're gonna have to be battling in and around it, and may get forced to go through it or something like that, or get
Yep.
driven back into it. So
So
All right, so now that we've covered kind of what the board situation looked like for game one, and longboard going to be an uphill battle for Davy for sure, and potentially exactly where Brian wants to be seated with the objectives on his side. What was kind of the overall arc of that game? I understand it actually ended pretty briefly.
yeah, I as the smaller warband, I won the roll off for first round, and then wasn't quite sure if I wanted first or second activation. I decided when in doubt, I usually take second in that first round. And then Brian kind of wisely jumped on the objective that is in no man's land pretty quick. And what that meant was it put pressure on me because I needed that for my hand. So I had to kill him and get back on it. And so we both were in a weird spot of I'm trying to kill him off of that so I can stand on it. As I kill or drive somebody back, he's got to decide, does he toss another person forward onto it or not, and keep throwing somebody in the meat grinder. As it was, Velmorn being the way Velmorn can be, some early crits kind of got inspirations going pretty well. I had some of those illusions in hand at the start, which really gave me some flexibility. I think I think a mulligan. I mulliganed into like what looked like more upgrades to me. I was like, oh man, and I'm like, oh, actually, there's two of these are illusions. I'm doing just fine. This is great. Um, and managed to cause some casualties and get a good end phase score as well to get
yeah.
rolling.
So like your first attack was killing the guy I just put on objective one in No Man's Land, inspiring Velmorn and the fighter.
Yeah.
And then I put another fighter on an objective. You put phantom darts on, pinged him or darted him off of that objective. So it was like I just couldn't keep up with no scurry mechanic. These guys struggled to hold objectives like that. I had some push tech in hand that just wasn't triggering. Like the situation just wasn't calling for it,
Mhm.
or fighters were too far back due to the long board that they weren't able to scurry up, even with the push tech to retake objectives. So
Yeah.
it all kind of came to a crashing halt when at the end of round one, his final was it end of round one or beginning round two? But
We were in the beginning
Thane,
of round two. Thane was inspired and got to do
Thane
a big old scything.
scything and killed Grib, Grinkrak, and another one of the
Yeah.
goblins. So that was we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was 0 to 10 at that point.
Yeah.
So
Oh boy.
some of the changes I made immediately were to get rid of some of the cards that were niche on wording. I did double down on opportunistic reprisal, though. I wanted to try and double down on the ability to get attack actions because I had to spend all my activations moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game two here.
Yeah. All right. So after some changes with the decks, no.
Deck singular. I kept mine the
Yep.
same.
Yep. Yep.
Everything seemed a-okay from my perspective.
All right. So after that first flight, we've made some quick changes on Brian's side, and we're into game two. So this is the game that we're going to be highlighting in full. And how does this one kick off?
I win the roll off again, and then just for curiosity, I was like, well, I've got a sense that if I give him 3 objectives, he's probably pretty happy with that, and also I just kind of want to see what this looks like if I set the boards wide. It will maybe put a little less pressure on me as far as that one in neutral I want. I think it's probably stronger, and maybe you agree, Brian, but I think it's probably stronger for me if I longboard you again. I think that your back line just has a hard time getting involved, or you just have to be real careful about how you deploy your guys. I think it just makes it more complicated for you if I do it that way.
Yeah, it definitely complicates it for the 3-move warband that has to spawn on all the objectives. I learned from that last one and positioned my fighters differently in this spawn, but now I only have 2 objective tokens, so I'm much more concerned about where 1 and 2 are.
Right. It's gonna at least you won't less likely to have the ones that you particularly want. So so I think we both have like things we like and don't like about this, but actually look at this board. So I end up placing some that are easy for me to sit on, and I'm trying to space them where they're not super easy for you to run onto in case it's one of the numbers that you want. And then I also try to make a point of putting one in neutral territory that's reachable by several of my starting hexes in case I draw that protected inheritance.
All right. Speaking of which, let's jump into opening hands now that we've set the field. And actually, just to describe a little picture for the listeners. So we do have boards nice and squared up, going wide, and then pretty centralized token placements. And by that, I mean that there's no tokens present in as far back as could be placed on either side. So, there's the hex, that's your edge hex line, and then the next hex line wide is empty on both sides. So we're really scrunching the objective tokens actually more towards the center here, with one directly in the center of no man's land off to the left a little, and then the placement of that snare hex just above. So that is setting the stage here. And for card draws, are you two feeling particularly good about the initial card draws? Do either of you go for a mulligan right out of the gate?
Well, I can tell you, looking at mine, right away, I'm fairly confident that I am going to mulligan. I'm going to do over my objective hand. I've got House Eternal, which is a surge for bringing a fighter back, but I do not have a Raise Gambit in hand. So that one is kind of out of the question. I've got Trace the Ley Lines, which is fine. The way Vassal is set up, there's still some confusion about exactly how to place objectives. There's some readings that say you get to take a look at the numbers on the ones that you place. I think the strictest reading of the English ruling right now is that you don't look. And so at this point, I don't know what objectives are which.
Our objectives are still face down.
Yeah.
Would much rather they be up right now.
That's it. Trace the Ley Lines is, pretty doable. And then Protected Inheritance is the one that, which I've been kind of saying this one wrong, but this Protected Inheritance is the one that wants 2 enemy fighters out of action. Against Grinkrak, that's doable, but needing to kill 2 before my accuracy is up is not great. So I've got one objective which is unscorable with my current power cards, one which is very unlikely. So that's an easy decision for me. A little harder is my power cards. I've got Darkwater Anchor, which I like. Basically, I've got 3 upgrades, an illusion, so a 4th upgrade, but we won't really count it. And then there is Unfair Fight, and this is a pretty good one for them. You can react to, if you've got a supported attack, you can react to stagger the target and get Grievous. So Velmorn activating early can really make this available for any of your attacks. Other than poor Jedrin. Jedrin's gonna get that support the hard way. So yeah, I tossed the objectives. Drew into Relentless Unity. This is I need a successful supported attack or unsuccessful supported defense, as in an attack has to go my way one way or the other, as long as there's support. Risky Strategy, which is not going to be great for me on this. That's 3 upgrades on a vulnerable fighter for 2 glory, and then Path to Victory, which feels relatively doable. So definitely an improvement on the do-over, but only barely.
All right. And Brian, over to you.
So my failsafe card in both decks is Pure Carnage, and I had the lucky fortune of drawing that here. Normally I would mulligan that immediately, but I also had my two easiest surges, Contest of Equals and Run 'em Down. Run 'em Down being the quest surge to perform a successful charge action. So that was a nail biter. I decided to keep my objectives there. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
for my
that's I'll jump in for a second there. I know those are your easiest surges. The one thing I don't like about Run 'em Down is that you got one shot at that, and that feels like one that is more scoreable if you have accuracy support, which you may or may not have in your gambits. I'm not sure, but I I it's tough to mulligan two scoreable surges. But I know you remember at the time you're like, this might be a bad decision. So it's tough to carry that third end phase the whole way. But
oh yeah,
I'm not saying I'm not saying it's the wrong decision, but I see why it was such a hard decision.
yeah. Well, given the last game, I was pretty confident bodies were going to drop. So then I ended up keeping that objective deck besides my conscience, and in my power hand, I had Great Strength, Guardian Glaive, Curse Boarding Pike, Blind Gamble, and Bolt Pylon. I just didn't feel confident enough having 3 upgrades, so I cycled because I also was trying to fish for Dark Inversion in case the cards did not come up my way. So I mulliganed the power hand and got Duel of Wits, Opportunistic Mob, Stab, Stab, Stab again, which is excellent for Run 'em Down because it allows me to stab, stab, stab again.
And I won't trigger with Run 'em Down because that next attack is not a charge attack, but it is
Yes,
it's a great card regardless.
Always the Brian necessary disclaimer: read the cards. And then I also had what is that? So Gnarlwood Tusks and Makeshift Bombardment. That's right. So for those that don't know, out of the Destruction Grand Alliance cards, Opportunistic Mob is a draw 2 power cards after a successful attack action that took out an enemy fighter and you had 1 or more supporting fighters.
One of the cards I'm going to ask you about is Blind Gamble. How do you like that card in the Gnarlwood season?
I don't like it because you used it against me with the Myari's Pingifiers. Thank you for the inspiration is why it's here. And it is much easier to get off than Opportunistic Reprisal.
Gabi. Yeah, I love it. I think you pretty much disregard that it has the potential to deal 1 damage. I don't think that should get factored into any decision to bring it. What it brings with it is a pretty reliable out-of-sequence attack in this season because the numbers are very visible, and it also gives you the opportunity to reposition. It still has the caveat of not needing of the fighter not having a move or charge token on them. So a lot of the time that is either something that you're setting up for future rounds, knowing that it's in your deck, getting your fighters positioned to fuel it, or you have push tech to make it happen. I don't think it belongs in every deck, but I am having a lot of fun with it and would be remiss if I didn't say I was happy to see it here. So I kind of hope it comes up. All right. Well, now that we kind of have an overview on boards and hands, let's see how drops characters start hitting the board.
Right. So I've got to start, and I've gone with the Hall of Sublimation, which, by the way, when this board rotates, I'm going to be a shattered man because I use this board all the time, like offensively and defensively. But I'm in the spot of having a lot of spaces that are pretty far forwards, which I want. I kind of want to tangle. I feel like I've got the combat chops that I can do things. I'm trying to position so I can get onto some of these feature range where I want to get to, and then figure out where to keep Velmorn so he's a little bit safer. So in short, my least important fighter, in my opinion, is Marshall Falk. Helmar is just slightly better because he gets cleave, which actually against this warband is kind of handy. So I've got Falk further back, and everyone else kind of pushes forward. The real tough decisions are mostly where does Thane go versus where does Jedrin go. And I decided to put Jedrin up front. I might reverse that in future. Thane is resurrectable too, and Jedrin has some tech that I'd like to have him live long enough to be able to leverage. But
Yeah,
So
meanwhile, for the goblin deployments, I put Skulko and Pronk in the back there. It's the Squigapult. I was using the Profane Larder. The lethal hex is towards the back, away from No Man's Land. Um, I put Grib actually pretty far back since he has range 4. He is within range to pounce onto, now that we can see. Objective 1 is in the No Man's Land. Objective 2 is in my backfield. And Objective 4 is also in my field. 3 and 5 are in Davy's home turf. So Skulko and Pronk and Snorbo, along with Grib, make up my back ranks. I have Grinkrak in the center, Burke and Nags, the Dangle Bros, front and center, along with Grinkrak. I put Grinkrak next to the Snare Hex because I thought, just in case there was some weird chance that he might wind up going there and getting staggered, again, trying to set up opportunistic reprisal. Snark being way off on the flank.
all right. And I noticed, Davey, your placement, because so with the numbers of the warbands here, we have Brian at 7 fighters and you at 5, meaning Brian's got to fill the board. So it's about revealing early, what he's all right with you seeing, and having to kind of actually plot out where his key fighters are going to land over the course of that puzzle. What do I show? And where are the key fighters going to land? You have a little more flexibility. You're going to have 2 open drop zones or starting hexes, and you avoided kind of the back and the outer edge. You are in a very forward position overall, so very much so. From a spectator standpoint, you've taken the position of being the aggressor. You've prepared yourself immediately to invade and start trying to drop or not orcs, grats.
yeah,
Same fungus though, right? Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay. So do you think that is a decision purely made here knowing that you're going to be the aggressor? Or do you think kind of with the deck that you've built, most of the time you're going to be positioning yourself as forward as possible?
No, there's definitely times where I will be further back. If this was the Gnarl Spirit pack, I'd be pushing towards the back, expecting it to be more aggro objective style. With these Grats, particularly this being effectively the second of 3 games, although there are some changes, I presume he's kept in Supremacy, and I don't want to sit back and give him an easy Supremacy or a hold 1 and 2 or whatever he may have. So I need to be able to brawl with him as he goes for those. One thing that I like that Brian has done here is that he's got Grinkrak forward, because Grinkrak starts on 2 block, and that's a pretty formidable stat line for me to have to try and grind through, especially early.
Agree. All right. Speaking of early, let's see who gets the first activation here. So it looks like the roll off is won by Davy here with the crit for simply having the fighters first on the board. So it looks like you make Brian go first.
I do, yeah.
Yep. So I started off with Snorbo charging onto objective number 4. Heavily supported, but trying to get one of my backfield guys up onto an objective, keep everybody forward. And he's trying to take a shot at Jedrin, his most forward fighter. Key here is that Snorbo could stagger him.
All right. Let's see how that attack goes.
Not great, Bob.
Plomp.
Yeah. I do like this as an early thing. He gets on an objective. He has a chance to chip damage and stagger, which just sets up the later round, but doesn't pay out. Yeah, it's kind of a 50-50. So,
At the very least, on that objective placement. So it's almost
yep.
as if that additional setup was bonus to just getting your positioning going.
Yeah. It's me next. I go for a move with Velmorn, get onto an objective. I'm getting ready. If I can get a kill, then Path to Victory will be doable. And that also gets my command counter out.
All right. That makes sense. No power cards going down quite yet. We do have a Run 'em Down quest coming into play from Brian. Who's that going to land on? Right onto Grib Dwonky Lance.
Yep. You can't put quests on to fighters with move or charge tokens, so I figured just get it out early. Grib is safe way in the backfield, so it's also a threat to anybody who tries to charge up onto Objective 1. Grib is in range.
And for those who don't know Run 'em Down, I'm just going to read it real quick. This is the quest Surge that says if this fighter is taken out of action, add this card to... Oh, sorry. No, that is just part of the quest dialogue there. That's, if any fighter that is ever given a quest is taken out of action, you're able to regain the quest card. But this specific quest does score this immediately after this fighter's successful attack action made as part of a charge action. Run them down. All right, so that comes out, and it looks like we move straight on to second activation. No power cards on either side. So Brian, bringing Grinkrak up with a move. What's your thought process there?
Just moving him onto Objective 1. Grib is still behind him, ready to pounce on somebody if they go and bully Grinkrak. Also, if they manage to get Grinkrak off of Objective 1, then Grib can charge onto Objective 1 so long as they don't push themselves onto it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, exactly. Positioned 4 hexes away. So it definitely has that opening. And you've got that awesome defense stat as your most forward presented fighter with Grinkrak here.
I do also have Gnarlwood Tusks in hand, which is a trap. Basically, if somebody were to charge one of my fighters who is on a feature token, I can stagger them.
All right.
Yeah, this is a problem for me because I know I eventually want that feature token, and I don't need it with my particular objectives in hand, but I don't like Grinkrak there, and it's really nicely done with the threat range for Grib. So I thought this is a great play. Any spot I go to counterattack on Grinkrak, he's going to be able to counterpunch with Grib.
All right. And then going into power here, it looks like Davy, you select Phantom Darts. Oh, nope, you just show it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of back and forth here. I'm hemming and hawing, and I decide that I won't. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to try and get some inspirations out. And I don't make a great play here. I charge forward with Helmar, which does put him right in that Grib threat range. I'm hoping to chip something off of Grinkrak and get inspired. And worst thing happens, I also get staggered by the Gnarlwood Tusks. So I'm really setting Grib up for an easy score on that Run 'em Down.
Yes, the aforementioned trap god.
Yeah.
Has been triggered.
Yeah, I've activated it.
All right. So that attack is about to be bolstered, it looks like. You're reacting to it with Unfair Fight.
Yeah. So what's good here is that I'm already supported, so I'm 2 Fury supported. This Unfair Fight gets me a reroll because he's staggered. I will set him up for later. And then also essentially makes me Grievous too, because I already have Grievous. So I actually could one-shot Grinkrak here with my 2 dice with a reroll.
Oh, you know what? I would have forgotten in the moment that Grievous gets applied twice there, that it actually stacks there. I know it does, but it's only been along for my time with the game just recently.
Unfortunately, I don't get to do one of my favorite things, which is to deny somebody duel of wits until the very last of the round.
Oh, do I
Brian
know it?
actually gets to trigger his pretty early.
Yep. So we had Gnarlwood Tusks into Unfair Fight, triggering Duel of Wits. It was a little fun back and forth.
All right. So grabbing your 2 cards, dice are coming down. The attack's going to go through. No more delay there.
Yeah.
And we have 2 smash rolled.
Yeah.
Hate to see it.
And then a reroll into a single support, which is actually possible, but my odds are super low because Grinkrak's having none of it.
Absolutely none of it. With a crit shield defense.
Yeah.
All right.
That exchange went pretty poorly for me. The only bonus I get is that Grinkrak is still staggered.
Yep. Indeed. Unfortunately, at the cost of Helmar being staggered.
Yeah. / at the cost of Helmar in short order.
All right. With that being said, it looks like we're on to Brian's 3rd activation, and the Grib play is coming in. We're going to see Grib hugging up against Helmar here with Grinkrak supporting. I imagine this is indeed his demise.
Yeah. He goes Fury Smash, reroll into Fury support for 2 successes, and I get none in return.
For Smash support there.
Yeah. With the stagger, he gets me 2 against it, but I get 0 anyway. So removed thanks to the squig horns, and that's a rough start for me.
Oh, and that scores him running him down too.
Sure
does. Him down, and a glory for the bounty.
Go
ahead.
When you stepped forward initially there with Helmar, did you notice the threat range of run him down?
It was one of those things where I had seen it early, made a plan to not do that, and then got myself considering too many options, and so I kind of forgot that was a thing that I was considering. So I definitely consider this a misplay on my part. I could have played this round a lot safer, not given him the support, not gone in against the heaviest blocker. It was just a bad move where I got myself considering too many possibilities, and then pulled the trigger on something while having forgotten some of the things I was trying to keep in mind.
Well, you see, Danny forgot about the Greyjoy fleet.
But to be fair, the other side of the board, opposite Grinkrak, is 4 fighters in a chain. So if he were to charge over there, there's places he can poke, but Grinkrak in center objective on no man's land is something he can't abide.
Yeah, it led me to think that maybe I do want to get in here, but I definitely think it was I just got a little greedy. I saw the possibility. I think it was a thing where I'm thinking of options, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh well, if I unfair fight, if I can get a crit out, I can just kill Grinkrak, and that's not actually as important as I was thinking in the moment. But it was one of those where you have a plan, you're kind of sorting through what other options exist, and you see one, you get really excited and pull the trigger on it before you really assess it. So I think if I'd given myself another 20 or 30 seconds to think about it, then I might have backed off of that.
Yeah, so I would never be so foolish.
One thing I want to point out about Grib here, and I can't recall if this was covered on the introduction to the Looncourt podcast episode, so apologies if I'm treading repeated water here, but the presence of impact really delights me. Just that has been keyworded, and that we're seeing it in other locations. Tamael in Soul Raid, I believe, was the only other fighter prior to Gnarlwood.
100% wrong.
What?
No, it's a freaking it's the barbarians.
Yeah, there's Jagathra.
Yeah, Jagathra. Hold on, who is Jagathra?
Oh, how dare you? How dare you, sir?
Godsworn hunt, sir.
Oh, yeah. I keep trying to forget them.
Actually, in your defense, Jagathra has the impact rule, but not by that name.
But not by
So
the keyword
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Sorry.
then Tamail gets the keyword,
Yeah,
and I think that's the first instance. And then we see it again on Spear Boy or Boar Lad in
yeah,
Gnarl Spirit.
yeah,
Lupin, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And we see it here again.
yeah,
So I just think it's a pretty great keyword, and I'm happy to see it repeated out.
yeah,
Um, so with that Inspire, threat range on him goes up to 5. We go
yeah,
from 1 shield to 2 dodge, and we gain some accuracy here. Both attacks gaining a dice,
yeah,
up to 3 fury and 3 smash on the
yeah.
attacks.
I really hate this because now that Lance is more accurate, and if he gets a damage upgrade, then he's gonna be a real problem for me.
Indeed. Excited to see if that plays out.
Yeah,
So we
I'm not.
have the Brian gets to draw another objective as a result of the quest scoring. So he's back up from a hand of 2 to a hand of 3.
Not only that, but I also get to do opportunistic mobs since Grinkrak was supporting that. I get to
Yeah,
draw 2 more power cards.
yeah. Brian was talking about building this deck, and he's like, "Oh, like this reminds me, I can score opportunity, or I can include opportunistic mob." I'm like, I literally cannot think what that card is, uh, and yeah. So you triggered both Duel of Wits and opportunistic mob in this round, which is a pretty nice start. So you're 2 glory up, and you have a strong power card advantage.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and it looks like into power we have no power card immediately being played by Brian. Over to Davy on Phantom Darts again,
Yeah,
and this time not just for show. We have the Marshall Falk receiving Phantom Darts.
yeah.
No,
What's that?
I've been bamboozled.
No, no, you're eventually gonna be. Well, maybe you're right.
It
Yeah,
ended up
I
on
put on
Thane.
Thane.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna. Okay, yeah, on to Thane,
So
and
the idea here is that Thane, as a Graveguard, has supports from his dad. Uh, if I can land a crit with this attack, I'll get Thane inspired and Velmorn inspired. And getting Thane inspired, I move him over onto the other objective, which gets him near. Brian was talking about his uh, ooh so scary wall of goblins over there, and I was like, that's exactly where I want to be with a scything attack. So if I can get over here, stand on the objective for short-term gains, and then if I can land a crit with this, then I'll be in a great position to charge next round.
I love the setup there. So the charge is playing out here. We have dice getting thrown, and a nice crit success and support result coming in
Yeah,
from from Velmorn's side. That's exactly what you want to see.
yeah,
So this isn't going to be defendable.
yeah. Nags takes it right in the brain, and I get the kill that I need for Path to Victory. I'm standing on 2 objectives. I'm feeling real good. I've inspired Velmorn. I've inspired Thane. I'm about to also score Relentless Unity because this was a supported attack that was successful. So I'm gonna even it up, and I'm gonna be in position for Path to Victory. Things are feeling pretty great for me right here as far as that exchange. I'm feeling like after a early blunder, I'm kind of positioned well. The other thing about this was I really thought about continuing after Grinkrak, with Grinkrak being staggered. But I realized that if I hang out there on that side, then I'm potentially giving those 2 fighters, who are his 2 better fighters, chances for like charge free like attacks without having to charge, right? Like if I hang out there, then Gribbs can use that lance. If he gets a damage upgrade, which the number of power cards he's got in hand, I could just be setting him up for next turn to really get some work done. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do work on the other goblins, and I'm gonna make them have to charge from where they're at to do anything.
I liked your first plan.
And after Duel of Wits and Opportunist Mob does some work here, that's a hand of 6
Yeah,
that we're trying to account for.
yeah,
Absolutely. And then after that charge pays off, looks like you drop the Darkwater Anchor
I do.
down in its position on Thane.
Yeah, Thane is on the objective that is most vulnerable. So if Brian decides he's going to counterattack with Burke, or if he's got a speed boost, maybe the guy with the squig on a stick. That guy, I just want to make sure that I don't get pushed off that, because right now I'm like, nobody can get at Velmorn. Somebody could theoretically get at Thane. If I guarantee that those two stay, then I got Path to Victory locked up. There's no way I can't score it, right? Right.
Oh, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Let's find out. So, still in power here. Going into Brian's fourth, we have Makeshift Bombardment coming out.
Yep.
Brian, walk me through this one.
So, Makeshift Bombardment, basically, I choose a friendly fighter. And an enemy fighter within 3 hexes of them. I can either stagger the enemy fighter or push them away 1 hex. So it's kind of a 3 range distraction or setting up stagger. Do ultimately choose to stagger.
Stagger Jedrin.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. In the front line. And then for your fourth, it looks like you take Skulko and Pronk. Is it Pronko? It should be.
Let me tell you what it should be.
Up to an objective placement. So now you're sitting on 3. You're sitting on, let me just take a look here. You're sitting
Objectives
on
1, 2, and 4.
1, 2, and 4. All right. So fast forwarding then into power, going into fourth for Davy. We're getting Ferocious Bite out on Sir Jedrin. I'm going to walk that back, actually. So why did you choose to stagger Jedrin going into your fourth and then not, capitalize off of it, essentially?
Simply, I initially kind of took the internet at its word and thought that Makeshift Bombardment was a long-range distraction. So I initially tried to shuffle Jedrin forward so that I could charge Skulko and Pronk and fire at Jedrin. You have to push the fighter away, so I could not distract him forward. So instead, I just chose to stagger him. I could not make a range 4 shot on Jedrin with Skulko and Pronk because they have to remain stationary. So it was a wasted opportunity.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
For me, I now see that he's sitting on 3 objectives, which has got me sweating because I know supremacy is a possibility. And I have now I'm in that decision point again where I've got Jedrin. Jedrin is up to 3 Fury because I put the Ferocious Bite on him. I could go 3 Fury with a reroll into Grinkrak, which would knock him off and kill an important piece, but it would also run me within spear range of Gribs. Or on the other side, there's Snorbo the Spore is just sitting on 1 single block on an objective, and that feels like the easier one to do. But before we get there...
Yeah, before we get there, Drifting Tides is the next card played. This is being played by Brian. I imagine this immediately starts changing the mental math you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you need to not just knock somebody off. You need to kill somebody, hopefully isolated if possible.
Yeah, this is not technically... Well, it is possible. I could charge through and try and kill Skulko and Pronk. I have a route in through there. And there I could deny supremacy by killing him. That gives him a support. And honestly, I didn't really see it. But Grinkrak, if I kill Grinkrak, he can pull that objective under Grib. And I really don't like that because then Grib can get at me. If I kill Snorbo, there's plenty of opportunities there. And also what I'm thinking is like, I really want Path to Victory. What I need to do is kill one of these guys, force him to use this to score supremacy for himself, and that'll preserve Path to Victory for me. And I think that's the better play. So I kind of go in with that mindset of I not seeing the Skoko and Pronk play. I'm like, I don't think I can stop Supremacy, but what I can do is make him use this power card to get that rather than deny me my stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a fair consideration. Ensure what you can. You don't necessarily know what his or what his objective hand looks like at this point in time.
Sure, but yeah, I'm playing against worst case scenario here.
Right. Okay. So then it looks like we go straight into your fourth. Jedrin makes that charge into Snorbo. 3 dice come down on your side. You
only 1 success.
Snag 1 success, 1 fury out of the mix.
Yeah.
Brian rolls and gets a support defense.
Which is not enough.
Which is not enough. All right. So Snorbo is down.
Yeah. I should say after I scored my my Relentless Unity, I have drawn into Contest of Equals. So I'm happy to have that in hand as we're going to be brawling. I figure that's going to score at some point here. Unfortunately, my best laid plans are defeated by Brian's very large power card hand.
All right, coming from Brian here is Bold Pylon. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters. Push each chosen fighter up to 2 hexes so that they are adjacent to the same enemy fighter. All right.
So by him taking out Snorbo, Burke, and Snark were standing nearby, ready to jump on that objective, both cuddling with Jedrin. So,
yeah, this is rough. This is a very flexible push. This is the ideal situation for that push. It gets them both into good spots, gets supports, gets back on the objective, and now I'm looking at him like, not only can he score Supremacy if he's got it, but I am going to lose Path to Victory because all the objectives are stood on, and I'm going to be the one that has to take the hit on.
I no longer have to use Drifting Tides to regain the objective. Snorbo just got killed off, and now I can use it for other nefarious things.
Yeah. One thing that we're trying to do during this episode is we're trying to highlight card text just to make sure that people are able to follow along at home, whether they're new listeners or old championship or rivals, Nemesis, savvy. Drifting Tides is one that I didn't quite highlight as it was coming out. So this is the domain that has seen an errata. It doesn't read quite how the card is written these days. The first line has been replaced. It no longer says reaction. It says you cannot play this in the final power step of the action phase. So Brian did have to play this before, as he did before we got into the fourth and out the other side for Davy here, because that'll end the round. Yep. But at the end of the action phase, once we arrive at that here momentarily, he's going to be able to pick one option. He can give a fighter 1 upgrade from his hand, and he doesn't have to spend any glory points when he plays that card, or he can pick 1 objective token on the board. It doesn't matter if it's occupied or otherwise, and move that objective token into an adjacent hex. So that's why we were talking so much about the threat of Drifting Tides here. It is a domain, which means anytime you hear that, you should think that effect only persists until either the end of the round or until another gambit. Domain gambit is played. But Brian was probably feeling pretty good, given that he had drawn such a strong power hand, and Davy was seeing good use out of his, but was down to a card or 2 at that time. So likelihood of a domain coming out to cancel this was low.
Skylar's being nice. They're also reading the cards because I don't.
No worries at all.
I'm holding out a secret hope that I'm like, maybe, because Brian actually does pause to read the card at this point, and I hear him read the upgrade portion and consider it for a moment. I was like, oh, maybe he, there's no way he's going to pick that. He's got 2 glory that's unspent, 3 power cards. He's probably going to score something in the end phase. He can play anything out of his hand that he needs to. And so wisely, Brian does stymie me.
Yeah, so I use Drifting Tides to pull the objective out from under Velmorn. I go into scoring. I score questing gets, which require me to hold objective 1 and 2, which I do.
Or have scored 3 quests, right?
Yeah, or that.
Yeah.
But who does that?
Not you.
But objectives 1 and 2 is definitely what's securing it here. So that grabs him a point. So we're up to a score of 3 on Brian's side. Looks like you're going to hold your remaining 2 objectives here. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I hang on to Pure Carnage, and throughout all of round 1, Contest of Equals did not score, but I'm going to hang on to it because it should score.
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically. So when Questing gets scores for you there, Grinkrak triggers his dub reaction. Use this after you score a non-quest objective. Choose one surviving friendly fighter. Inspire that or the chosen fighter. It looks like you choose Snark. Could you give me a little insight into that choice?
Basically, he gets a lot more accurate, and his damage is he's one of the few 2 damage fighters in the group. He also has Nashin on his thing, which I think could be disruptive. And he's standing right next to Jedrin, who is also supported by Burke. So it's aiming another gun at Davy's head, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on because I don't want to lose Nash and I don't want to take this damage. And also that extra speed he gets on Inspire means that he can threaten Velmorn.
And before we jump out of the scoring phase here for Brian, he applies Fighter's Ferocity. So Grievous 1 to Snark here to add to that loaded gun. And Bold Engineer. So Bold Engineer's +2 move, except during a charge action. Reaction. After a friendly fighter's activation, pick 1 feature token in an empty hex adjacent to this fighter. Place that feature token in this fighter's hex. So a really nice tool for moving around the board and ensuring that you're going to be able to occupy a distant empty feature token.
Yeah, and Snark is also just behind No Man's Land, could charge towards Thane and Falk. Thane has Darkwater Anchor, so he can't be pushed off the objective, but I can steal it from him.
Yeah. For my part, I do get to Sibling Rivalry Marshall Falk into an inspired state. He's back in a not very useful position, but could get involved.
And over on your side, Davy, we don't see Path to Victory score here.
Yeah, it hurts. I have to throw away Risky Strategy. This is an objective that I think is pretty good late after I've done some resurrections, but I there's like a scenario where this could score, but it's just too much wonk to be able to do that. I do throw Great Strength out on Thane. It does a couple things. It means that his Great White Blade, like his non-scything attack, is now 3 damage, which is sufficient to kill Grib or Grinkrak, which I think is pretty important. And it gives the scything attack the ability to kill the smaller grots without the need to roll into a crit. Or if the opportunity arises, I can fish for that crit on a scything and kill some of the 3 wound fighters. So didn't need it on Jedrin, who's already at 3 damage. Didn't need it on Velmorn, who inspired is also already at 3 damage with Grievous 1 on top of that. So it's really just a matter between Thane and Falk. Not seeing any wound upgrades coming on Brian's side.
All right. So with scoring phase over, we're at 3 versus 3. And Brian, I'm going to jump back to you. What are you holding going into round 2? What do you hope to accomplish here?
So I held on to Pure Carnage and Contest of Equals. I drew Tactical Supremacy 1-2. I'm already on both 1 and 2, so it sounds all right. I held on to Stab, Stab, Stab again, and I drew 4 power cards. I drew Dark Inversion, Blind Gamble. I drew Lurking Horror and Rapid Defender. Rapid Defender.
It does look like it should be rapid.
It's got one of the...
Look at that art.
What is that, Hungering Skaven?
Yeah, I'm convinced that the artist read that as rabid.
Yeah. So Rapid is one of the newer... is it Fearsome Fortress?
It is Fearsome Fortress.
So Rapid Defender reaction... It's an upgrade reaction after an enemy fighter's move action. If that enemy fighter is in no one's territory or your territory, push this fighter 1 hex towards that fighter.
All right. Any particular? So obviously, standing on 1 and 2, you're already there. You're looking to just stay there. Any other like plans forming in your head at this time?
I got some offense tech. Rapid defender could just be a way to move Grib around if I need. But as far dark inversion doesn't seem really useful right now, but it's there for different board setups.
Yep, makes sense. All right, Davy, what are you holding, and what plans are forming?
So unfortunately, I'm only holding 1 surge at this point. I have contest at equals, which feels at this point there's probably going to be 7 to 8 attacks in the second round here. So it feels very likely to score one way or the other. I've got Path to Victory. I held on to it. It felt still scoreable. And then my other one I drew was an end phase, and it's Protected Inheritance. And this is where I have to hold 1 objective in my territory and have 2 or more enemy fighters out of action. That feels super doable. I've got 4 of my fighters left. I've got Velmorn inspired, so he's on 2 blocks, so he's pretty tanky. And I've already got the 2 fighters out of action. So that's a 2 glory end phase for holding an objective in my territory. That feels great. I really like that I've got the inspired Jedrin. The roll-off's going to be important. I'm sorry, not inspired Jedrin. I have inspired Velmorn. Roll-off's going to be important because it's going to be there's a kind of scrum over here with Jedrin and Snark and Burke are all facing off with each other. Yep. I've got some good power cards over here. I've got King of the Deeps for extra accuracy. That can be like super accuracy on Jedrin because he's got such a big attack. I've got Mighty Swing. I've got a couple opportunities to use that. Jedrin can use it where he's at, or Grib and Grinkrak are close together. I've got Praetorian, and this is the one where Jedrin can come protect Velmorn. They're actually pretty far apart, and I've this may be an error on my part in getting them so separated. It's going to take some engineering for me to figure this out. It's not impossible, but it's going to take some maneuvering from me. We've got Internal Surrender. This is the Gambit speed +1 dice for range 1 attack actions, but also -1 defense. I've not actually used this card before because I've been leaning into the other. I haven't used much Tooth and Claw, and even when I have, it's been with Hexbane, who for them I've been leaning into the stuff that works with range 3+. And then Horrifying Armor. We talked about that at the top. I've got a couple stuff I'm real excited about, and some stuff that feels more situational depending on how the round develops.
All right, let's see how that develops. So you mentioned that the roll-off was going to be very important for you, and it looks indeed like you won it.
I did a little bit of thinking about this, but on my left side, Grib and Grinkrak are too far away to do anything unless somebody goes in on them. So the obvious play is for Jedrin to try and start working on this scrum over there. He's not yet inspired, so he's still 2 fury. He is doing 3 damage, and he's got the ferocious bite, so he's rolling 3. But I get to start off with a crit success. So I take the guy that Brian has put 2 upgrades on. Snark gets smoked right off the bat.
Oops,
Snark coin failed me.
As well as Dubbed. Did Dubbed into that inspired state? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So
that was a big one.
Yeah, that's 3 elements of investment there, blown straight off the board, right at the kickoff of round 2.
Yep. Crucially, gets me a glory, and so I have an unspent available and both the pieces of equipment I have are potential Jedrin stuff. So,
right. So it looks like Jedrin inspires there as well.
Yep.
Oh, right. Yep. Due to the crit in the attack. Perfect. Yep. So things are looking pretty hot on your side.
Yeah, that feels like it. I'm still kind of recovering from that early error, but now I feel like I may be getting in a little bit of the driver's seat here. I've killed 3 of the goblins. I've got Jedrin is ready to line up to kill another one. Now that he's inspired, he's actually pretty accurate. And Brian's heavy hitters are not in range unless they charge.
And you're sitting on a scored objective if this game state remains, right? Thane has your personal defensive one be on one objective and have two of them down. Remind me again.
That is protected inheritance.
Protected inheritance, yes. Yeah. So you have that in the bag if board state remains with just Thane present, where he currently stands. All right, so after that first activation, no power coming down from Davy, but we have Lurking Horror coming in from Brian and going on to Skulko and Pronk. From there, Brian... Blind Gamble, yes.
Yeah. So he's got to delve with Burke, which staggers him, sets him up for a kill, possibly for later, but gets an attack off. I know this card is sitting and burning a hole in your hand. This is a lot of investment to sneak one damage through, in my opinion.
I wanted it to be Snark. But yeah, no, I just wanted to use the cards.
Sure.
All right. So in that case, the attack coming in from Blind Gamble here does appear to be successful. We've got a crit coming in from Brian onto a shield for Jedrin. So laying down that one damage and not driving him back because we're hoping to, I assume, keep him in position for a follow-up attack here.
Yeah.
All right, so that first activation from Brian is an attack from Burke. With the power of Lurking Horror, we've got 3 dice.
I'm going to interrupt you. It's Skulko and Pronk.
Yep.
Right?
Skulko and Pronk are firing with steady at range 4 into Jedrin with support from Burke.
Thank you. Yep. Saw the 3 dice going down and no movement and just made assumptions. Well, in that case, do we have a hit here?
Sure do, because Skulko and Pronk are supported by Burke. That was a good non-drive back. Kept him in range, kept him with support, and it's 2 successes versus 1.
All right. Thanks for the assist on the wheel there. I mentioned there would be a little bit of bumpiness. So Skulko attack does go through here. We have those 2 successes coming from that supported position by Burke into just a shield on Jedrin. So we have Jedrin at a grand total of 3 wounds taken.
Yeah.
And a drive back.
Do not like the things I have going for me right now with that is Jedrin is pretty far away from Grinkrak. Gribbs can probably has the speed to get through for the kill. But Jedrin now has to charge to take advantage of his increased accuracy.
And that drive back by Skulko and Pronk means that you can't retaliate directly by charging them here.
Yeah.
Burke is the only available target for Jedrin if he wants to make a charge.
Yeah. Burke is a fair target, though, because he's sitting on a feature. He's sitting on an objective, and I am still worried about supremacy popping up.
All right. That seems to be a fair concern in my mind. All right, so we have in power, no power played by Brian, and a mighty swing coming out by Davy.
Yeah, this is where I maybe make a second error. We'll see. I kind of get end zone eyes here. I figured Skulko and Pronk have fired their shot, their 2 damage shot. Jedrin has 2 health left. There's not really an easy way for him to get at me unless he wants to run Grib all the way across the map. I was like, well, I've got a way to deal with Grib, and that is my very healthy Velmorn, who can get a mighty swing. And then I also put out internal surrender, so I'm bumping Velmorn up to even more. Add to that a King of the Deeps. So I'm going to charge in. I'm going to have a chance to swing on Gribbs and Grinkrak. 4 smash on one, 3 smash on the other, 3 damage with Grievous. Grievous doesn't matter here. But
You said there's an error here. What error?
it's my personal error. I don't think this is the right play at this time. I think I bring Velmorn too, and then I think also I am forgetting that internal surrender is -1 defense. So I'm forgetting that I'm going to send Velmorn in, and Velmorn will not be as tanky as I think he is.
Ah,
So I
gotcha.
think this is a bad time, especially since I haven't seen my resurrection gambits, and I haven't seen my House Eternal objective. I think this is too early to be risking Velmorn like this. I think the right play right now is a Velmorn charge.
And the last card there that you mentioned is King of the Deeps. That is +1 dice to the first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation step, +2 dice instead if one or more of that fighter's attack actions damage characteristics are greater than the target's wound characteristic. Does that apply here? No.
It doesn't. It's just
Okay.
on one.
All right.
So I think the right play is Velmorn gets either internal surrender or King of the Deeps or neither, and just goes like a 3 smash against a staggered Burk to smoke that guy, get some easy glory, and then put Brian on the back foot again.
Copy. Well, let's see how this particular move plays out. So,
Yep.
Velmorn coming in to that group Grinkrak position. These names,
Grinkrak and Grib.
they have my tongue all sorts of twisted. All right. So,
You don't know how to speak the refined dialect of the knights.
indeed. Neat. All right. So 4 dice coming in on the first attack here from Velmorn. Looks like we're going to get 2 successes in the form of smash.
Yep. And I've decided to go after Grib. I forget that Grib inspires to 2 dodge instead of 2 block. So I'm at first disheartened to see 2 block. It's one of these where like both of us see the attack and defense dice and we're both like, "Aw." I'm like, well, one of us is wrong, and it was me. So
Yeah, it didn't feel like an error here.
yeah, I just think I could have waited on this till later in the round. I did not need to do this as early as I did.
Yeah, but Grib goes down.
Yeah.
My beautiful boy.
That's big. He's the big damage dealer. He's out, and so I feel like I'm already ahead now. I've got in my mind, 2 block, 4 health fighter, and I may still get the kill on Grinkrak because I'm 3 smash into 2 block, which is not unreasonable. I have lethal damage possible here.
And do you get it? The dice roll. We have 1 success coming in from Velmorn, and we have that same double shield result sticking on those dice, protecting Grinkrak.
Notably freezing contest that equals in both our hands.
Indeed. Couldn't you just rolled a crit there? Just 1 crit and anything else.
Yeah. So that feels pretty good. And again, I'm forgetting that internal surrender is reducing my defense.
So let's see. Going into Brian's second year. So no power comes out between Velmorn's Havoc there and the response. So the response is
Grinkrak swings on me and gets it through. Actually does not. And this is a error because I think that I have 2 defense dice. So I roll 2. I roll a crit and a crit and a miss versus his crit and a miss. So
do you 2 realize this mistake later, or does this?
You realize it a little bit later, but this play doesn't get walked back. But it kind of is a wash because we both score contest that equals on this. So
can't be too sad.
Yeah.
All right. So then
my favorite thing to do, not my favorite thing to do, I do enjoy like when the other player's like, finally I score contest that equals. I'm like, oh, good for you. I score it too.
Took a round and a half before contest to score.
Speaking of which, what takes its place? Brian, starting with you.
I got the bestest card. Nya 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 nya.
And could you remind me what nya 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 does?
Basically, it's a quest surge card and score this immediately after an enemy fighter's attack action that targets this fighter and fails.
Excellent.
And I
Uh,
drew into Regal Riposte, which I like this card in general. This is a Surge hybrid. Score 1, you have to take a fighter out with an attack action, and either the friendly fighter has no charge tokens or the enemy fighter has one or more charge tokens. This is actually not a good situation for me to score it because of how the board has positioned, and I have become the aggressor. This is a good counterpunch card. It's not a great aggressor card.
all right. It's safe to say that this new objective in either cases doesn't really change your laid out plans for the round.
Negative.
All right. So moving on from there. So we've just drawn our surges, or drawn our new cards. In power, the aforementioned Nana Nana is indeed going down as a quest upon Grinkrak himself.
Yeah, this is rough because he's already. This is like almost protective insurance here because I'm like I already am not in a great position to land a blow on him, and if he's got this up, I'm further disincentivized from going after him.
All right, and it looks like no additional power happening there. So for Davy's third, looks like a play from Dredrin here. So you do take that charge onto
Yeah,
Burke. I notice. So you position yourself on this charge in such a way that you're position yourself as far away from your remaining fighters as possible. What kind of leads to that footing?
I think I was trying to make sure that even if he got a speed upgrade on Grinkrak, he couldn't go run over and finish off Jedrin. Jedrin being big and Grinkrak being potentially pretty accurate if he finds a way to inspire him. There was another situation where I like charge in a way to bring Jedrin in. I think a better play is to use I only have 2 power cards left in my hand, and that is Horrifying Armor and Praetorian. There's a position I can charge to, which is still near Burke, and then if Grinkrak decides that he's going to attack Velmorn again, I could Praetorian over with Horrifying Armor and make that a really low accuracy attack. I wish that I had done that, but I didn't. Another thing where it was just too many possibilities, and I got myself thinking about too many different things. Um,
All right,
However, I do manage to smoke Burke, so that feels good.
indeed. Looks like the roll for that had at least the crit you needed.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm 3 smash into 1 block for this one, so that feels pretty doable. It gets me up to 7-4, but I have made some positioning errors again here. I think like we mentioned, I think there was a better spot for me to be.
I enjoy the amount of self reflection that you do in each of these, because these appear to have worked out for you overall so far.
Right.
However, I am in agreement that there are lessons to be learned here in the sense of like I think the better play would have been to have held Velmorn, or in hindsight I should have positioned Jedrin a little better here. Those are the things that. When you're playing Underworlds, if you can do that, if you can review a game like this, or even the choices in the moment after the fact and think, oh, note to self, like that's a consideration that I should have made at this time, then hopefully the next time it comes up, that is the consideration you make. And that's how we all become better players. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Despite these plays working out for you, to some degree, seeing that there's a better play is what makes us all better.
Yeah.
So, all right. So after smoking Burke, Brian plays Dark Inversion. So Burke was standing on 4, right, before Jedrin deleted him.
Yeah.
And the Dark Inversion here is to put a snare hex next to Jedrin. So swapping that snare that's centrally located over into that 4. Brian, is this purely for denial then?
Pretty much. Dark Inversion had been sitting in my hands. I just wanted to keep it within reach of both of my surviving fighters.
Yeah, I think the better play, and you're not aware of it at this time, but if you had changed 5 is the other objective in my territory. if when you play Dark Inversion, I'm like, oh man, like he could potentially place Path to Victory out of my reach again if he swaps the snare into my territory. But you don't. You swap it for the one next to Jedrin who's already made his charge.
Oh, okay. So the consideration there is it would take a push to get Jedrin into position, but
Yeah.
Falk could, just on your next activation, move.
Yeah. Grinkrak takes another swing.
Yep. For Brian's third activation, we have a swing coming out from Grinkrak here. Fairly accurate, coming in with a crit and smash, both being successes,
Yeah.
into a sad single and double support.
Yeah, which was again too many dice, but unsuccessful anyway. So lays 2 damage into Velmorn, decides to leave him there so he can keep swinging.
And then no power between. So we jump straight into the fourth for Davy here,
Yeah.
which is indeed that move from Falk that we just highlighted. Getting onto that 5 and setting up Path to Victory here. All right, so after Falk's move, final activation here for Brian. We have another attack coming in from Grinkrak into Velmorn. At this time, we have figured out the internal surrender conundrum that we've been overdicing our defenses. So the attack from Grinkrak into Velmorn here misses off of only 1 defense dice, and then we see stab, stab, and stab again coming in from Brian. This is a Looncourt reaction that is used this after a friendly fighter's activation in which they made 1 or more failed attack actions. That fighter makes 1 attack action. So we get 1 more shot at the king here, and let's see if it is good enough. I believe it is. So Velmorn gets pulled off the board.
Yeah. It's not feeling good. I am still in the lead here, but I know that I haven't seen any of my resurrection tech yet, and all that's going to be dead draws when it comes up.
I am the king now.
So then we're going to jump into scoring here for round 2. It doesn't look like there's going to be any power played by either player. All right, so we're going to start scoring here with Davy at 7. Davy, what do you score?
I managed to get Path to Victory because I got Thane and Falk are sitting on objectives, and I did kill somebody this round. And then also Protected Inheritance because 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action, and I have an objective in my territory. So it's a 4-point score, gets me up to 11. Feels pretty good. I play out Horrifying Armor on Jedrin because it is this situation where Skolko, the only fighters he has left are Skolko and Pronk and Grinkrak himself. Kind of forgetting about the whole concept of pings. In that, like, putting this on means that I could be killed by a ping. But the idea here is I'm going to put this out. If I can get adjacent, I'm harder to hit. And from there, then even if I do die, I'm only giving up 1 glory. And now, before Brian scores anything, I'm up 11-4. It feels real good. One thing I do is I hold on to Regal Riposte, and this is the score as long as I don't have a charge or if the enemy has a charge. This is a mistake, again, here, because Grinkrak's going to be hard to kill anyway, and Grinkrak is already adjacent. And then Skoko and Pronk are probably not doing a lot of charging either. Like this, I think a smarter play, if I'd been more familiar with this deck, I ditched this in favor. I still have 6 objectives in my deck. I have a lot of options left. I have not scored much in my deck so far. But I hang on to it and then draw up.
All right. And then, Brian, what do you score this round?
I score Tactical Supremacy 1 and 2. Because I'm still on them.
Yeah, with his 2 fighters. Yeah.
I still have Pure Carnage in hand. Nyan 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 is still in play on Grinkrak. So I will keep Pure Carnage and draw 2 objective cards. I put Rapid Defender on to Grinkrak just because I have it. Grinkrak's currently standing in no man's land, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So yeah, correction. I guess we're at 7-11. Once you score that, I think we didn't have Velmorn's glory scored.
Oh, sure.
No.
All right. And then
Yeah,
uh,
so 7 for the Looncourt, 11 for Velmorn.
absolutely. So going into round 3, you've just drawn new hands.
No.
I'm going to start with Davy this time. What is your plan?
Well, I am sitting on. I've drawn into trace the ley lines, which is actually a little bit tough here. The objectives 1 and 2, which are the easier ones to score, are currently sat upon by some goblins. And I only have 3 fighters left, and I have no way to resurrect any. And as already mentioned, Regal Riposte is tough to score. I do have Branching Fate in hand, which is doable. I have 3 inspired fighters, all of whom are rolling 3 dice, either because of just a natural profile or cards that they have. I have enough damage where I could kill Grinkrak. He's pretty defensive, and that's a risky play. But I'm up 11-7. I have a 4 glory lead. Skolko and Pronk could get off a kill on Jedrin if they land the hit. But even if they do, that's only a 1 glory. I'm feeling pretty good. The upgrades I've drawn into are Gifted Ferocity for an extra dice. Call to Heal. This is a weird push. It's choose 1 beast or savage fighter. Push the chosen fighter 1 hex or up to 4 hexes if it is a friendly fighter, so it is adjacent to a friendly fighter. I don't have a super awesome way to use this. No very obvious way to use this from the start. I did get Redoubled Fervor, and this is the attack again. Has to be with a Graveguard, so Jedrin can't use it. But that it is improved ability if my boss is alive and I have a command counter, but as we've established, that is not the case. And then Center of Attention and Partial Resurrection, which is a dead card because my boss is dead. Risked him too early. But with a 4 glory lead, I'm feeling pretty good.
All right. Brian?
So I'm behind by 4. I've got Pure Carnage in hand. If I remember correctly, currently 6 fighters are out. So I'm looking at somebody needs to die, and likely going to be one of me. And I drew into Mobbum, which is another quest surge card for the Looncourt. This one, score this immediately after a supported friendly fighter's successful attack action if this fighter made the attack action or supported that fighter. So successful supported attack action involving the person with this card.
Only 2 fighters left. Feels kind of rough.
Only 2 fighters left. Nobody is adjacent to me. I did draw into Cursed Boarding Pike, Guardian Glaive, and Phantom Fist. So those 2 range 2 weapons give me some hope that I can try and just get some pokes off. The other card, more importantly, that I started beaming about was pick on a get your own size. It's another Surge Quest Looncourt card. This one, score this immediately after this fighter's attack action that takes the target out of action if the target had a higher wounds characteristic than this fighter for 2 glory surge.
Yeah.
So Jedrin gotta die.
Oh,
Because Skolko and Pronk are 2 wounds, so they could try and kill Falk and Thane, but both of them are 3 wounds. Skolko and Pronk can't one-shot any of them. I do have great strength also in hand, so there's chances, but Jedrin's just sitting there. Skolko and Pronk are ready to make a range 3 attack action into him if given the chance.
copy. And Pure Carnage needs 7 out of action fighters, correct?
That's correct.
You are currently at 7, so you're solid there.
Yeah.
Going
Read
into
the
this
cards.
round.
So yeah, I don't realize it, but the score is really it's 11-10. Because that first round ended so quickly, I didn't know that Brian had Pure Carnage in his deck, which is an argument for if you're playing a best of 3 and you are getting blown out, maybe hide those cards.
Pure Carnage is the best way to fail successfully.
Yeah, fail upwards.
And when you're bringing 7 or more models, it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see who wins the roll-off here. We have the roll-off going to Brian. So
Finally!
Yeah. Boo.
so you get to make the choice here. Is the choice to give Davy everything he wants in a first activation of his very own?
Oh,
So somehow he does,
Oh,
actually. Yeah.
comedy aside, Jedrin is indeed the one that moves.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall why you chose Davy to go first here?
oh, duh. Because it takes a power step in order to put the quest card on first.
Copy.
Yeah.
Read the cards.
So I come in with a 3 smash versus 2 block. It's not great odds. It's not terrible odds, but it's in the 50-50ish range. But I miss with Jedrin, and this is a big miss. This is an important attack that does not land. And all of a sudden, Jedrin is sitting next to Skolko and Pronk, and not happy about having missed, because that gets me in a bad spot. And I also did not roll. I rolled a smash double, so could not have scored Branching Fate.
This is one of those situations where even though the card seems great, just ends up being in your own head on all the other opportunities of fighters you should have put it on.
Yeah, to be fair, like the presence of that card has actually improved Grinkrak's survivability, because I'm unwilling to take a swing on him. It's not worth risking giving you that glory for just missing. So while it's not getting you glory, it is effectively being a defensive upgrade on Grinkrak.
Which was something I considered, but not scoring cards still.
Yeah,
sad.
To be fair, you still have 3 in hand. A
couple things I want to jump in and highlight real quick here. So Nana is still in play on Grinkrak. So Brian went into the last scoring round with this quest equipped to Grinkrak and 2 objective cards in hand. He came out of the scoring phase there with an additional objective. So quests have this really nice benefit where if they're still present on a fighter during that scoring phase, when you draw up, you get to draw a full hand regardless of the fact that there's a quest on the board. And if that fighter dies, it's going to jump back into your hand and bump it up to over that 3 count that you would normally be constricted to. So that's interesting. Just seeing that you have more objective potential face up and present for you to contend with than Davy does right now. Mind you, I'm sure you would have liked to have seen Nana score earlier, but it's still out there. So that's pretty great. And then with your choice to go second here, have Davy go first, he had to choose between which of the 2 shield fighters he wanted to go into. So as far as like fighters that you could have alive right now and make that choice with, these seem to be a pretty solid defensive position for you to feel safe enough to go toe to toe with his dice result for that first activation there. So I suppose with that said, just a few notes that I thought was a little bit of fun to highlight, and let's see what happens next. So you wanted that power phase to get that quest going. So who does that go on to?
It must go on Skolko and Pronk, because Nana is still on Grinkrak. So it does.
Yeah, I'm horrified to discover that he's got that, but I don't see a way out. Even worse, he puts on Guardian Glaive and sitting on a objective. That means he's going to be 2 smash with as many rerolls as he wants for a 3 glory kill, since I'm next to him. That I can do something about. I can try and make him have to do it with his shooting attack, which is a little less accurate than the 2 smash with infinite rerolls.
Mm-hmm. This is
Not
very
infinite,
rude.
Double, yeah. So this is where Call to Heal actually comes into play. I started the round not sure how I was going to play this, and now I can. So I do a push 4 with Jedrin to bring him all the way back into my territory. Takes him out of Guardian Glaive range of Skolko. So if Skolko wants to get me, Skolko is going to have to do it with the Squigapult.
And in response, Brian, possibly a little defeated, is like, fine, I'm just going to put Cursed Boarding Spike onto Grinkrak here.
Yeah.
And likely try to chip away at Falk, I imagine.
Which feels super bad. I was really liking the start of this round where I was like, he's got one shot from Skolko and one shot from Grinkrak, who is range 1. And outside of that, like there's not enough for him to catch up. But once he started putting out these ways for these fighters to attack multiple times, I'm like, okay, well now I actually got problems.
All right, and before the power phase is over here, we see Mobham come out. So,
well, we see it briefly until I point out to Brian that he can't have more than one quest. This is where he starts to get salty about quests.
I thought you were oddly familiar with that caveat. There it is.
It hits me.
All right. So, going into Brian's activation, or first activation here, we have a Cursed Boarding Pike attack coming from Grinkrak into Falk.
Yeah.
Dice hands you 1 success out of 4, which looks to be enough. The single support gets rolled in defense there, so Falk is taken off the board.
Yeah, feels rough. I'm now down to 2 fighters. I don't have a ton of options going forward. Thane does have enough damage where I could, if I want, counterattack into Grinkrak. But I risk triggering Nya. So
And
that's a problem.
Quick score recap. That sets us at 8 points to 11 for Looncourt into Velmorn. But really, with Pure Carnage hidden away, we're at about 11 to 11.
But I don't know it.
So then we see Gifted Ferocity coming on your side, Davy. This is a mutation. Plus 1 dice. This is from Tooth and Claw. To this fighter's range 1 attack actions. And as a reaction, this can be given out a little earlier without the cost of glory.
Yep.
So this goes in on Thane. And we go into your second activation here. So Thane is making a charge into Grinkrak. 4 dice come out. We're looking at a crit success here from Thane. And in the defense, we've got 2 dice for Grinkrak, but we don't see the crit.
Womp.
All right. So not only is that a kill, that is actually 4 unique dice results, grabbing a Branching Fate to boot.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm running away with this at this point. I think there's possibly a better play. If I'd been anticipating where a Skolko and Pronk are probably charging to, I have actually a better spot I could charge to, which is 1 spot closer, because now both my fighters have charged, but I'm forgetting the new rules, which is that once I've charged with everybody, I can still keep attacking if somebody's in range. And I think if I place Thane next to objective 4 as well as 1, then Skolko and Pronk's likely landing spot is killable, and being closer to them is no problem because they already have the Guardian Glaive. So if they are wanting to attack me, they can already do that. I'm not exactly sure what my thought process was. Oh, I did have a plan here. I was going to center of attention to get myself into a safer spot. I'm going to pull myself back onto an objective.
All right. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
I see here too, kind of a quest dilemma happening for Brian. So Nana jumps back into his hand. We know that there's also another quest in there that he can't divvy out. So given the fact that Skolko and Pronk are hanging out with pick on and get your own size, already quest attached, there's 2 dead objectives sitting in Brian's hand until he can free up that quest slot on his remaining fighter.
It hurts.
Yeah, that is a bummer. So,
2 dead surges in hand.
yeah. Ugh. All right, so let's see what happens next here. So after the kill, we see that center of attention come out to give you that safe position. Not only a safe position, but an objective position next to
Yeah.
Jedrin. Back
I
onto the...
pull myself back on an objective. Crucially, I actually pull myself away from objective 1, which would score me trace the ley lines. And I'm doing this. This is an example of me being overly confident. I've got a 5 glory lead. Um, what I'm forgetting, as we've already mentioned multiple times, is that, or not forgetting, but I'm just not aware that he's running pure carnage. And I've done this both times that I've played Greencracks. I've forgotten that pick on to get your own size is a 2 glory surge, which is spicy.
Speaking of which, I have a
Yeah.
feeling we are about to see that payoff here. We have a charge coming in from Skulko and Pronk. So landing in on objective 4, which is just over the line. So we're 3 away from both Thane and Jedrin hugged up next to each other. And the dice come out. We have a crit Fury Smash result from Skulko and Pronk.
Yeah.
+1 for Lurking Horror, and taking out the smash result, Lurking Horror got me another sword.
So crit and 2 successes. Additionally here, no defenses rolled from Davy's side. No defenses needed on Davy's side.
Yeah.
Jedrin goes down. So at this point in time, horrifying armor is going to break, right?
Yeah. So here's where we actually didn't know the timing on this, and we decided that we would just look in. Like, the unspent glory is not a problem here. Like, it's not going to make a difference whether you can do objectives. Just final scoring. There's an interesting rule dynamic here. Jedrin is sitting on horrifying armor in order to deny the double glory bounty for a large fighter. Skolko and Pronk hit with a crit, which has gnashing, so they can break an upgrade with this attack. They can technically, we weren't sure on how the timing, but looking at this, this should happen during the deal damage step. Is that what you figured out, Skylar?
I believe so. Just looking at the combat sequence in the rule book, it looks like there's an advanced rule section highlighted there that talks about Grievous and other such critical abilities would go off at that time.
Right. So Skolko and Pronk have this cool ability where they launch a squig, they gnashing, so this squig chews off the horrifying armor, which bumps Jedrin's health up to 2, but still dies because it does 2 damage. So this is 2 glory kill. We don't mark it as such. So actually it's a 4 glory kill. You go up to 13 is what you should be going to on this, which ties it up.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is this rule dynamic I was not paying attention to, not super familiar
basically
with.
Occurs at the same time as what Grievous would be.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we have 2 fighters who are too far away from each other to attack, even though they are both just sitting on charge tokens. And this is where, if I'd been up closer, if I'd recognized that my big lead was not as big as it was, a better positioning would have set me up
for some counterattacks here. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. So instead, what we have is Thane and Skulko kind of eyeing each other up a little bit, 3 hexes away from each other, both sitting on their very own pretty objectives. A 4 beneath Skulko, a 5 beneath Thane. And the score is currently, we have it scored at 11-13, but after realizing that Jedrin would have counted as a large fighter kill there, we would be at 12-13, Looncourt to Velmorn. So moving forward, I'm
just cycling objectives. I think Brian's doing the same. If I knew this deck better, I would realize there are no objectives left in this deck that I actually have scoreable.
All right. Yep. All remaining activations of the game, so two apiece, are spent cycling and into scoring. So no new power cards go out here towards the end. So we only have 1 in hand for Brian and 2 in hand for Davy. So our options are probably pretty spent here. What do you have left in hand, power wise?
So I have partial resurrection, which is
Oh,
dead
right.
because Velmorn is dead, and then crucially, I have redoubled fervor, which is the re-attack, and this is another vote for Thane being one spot closer instead of pulling him back to the safe spot. Anticipating where he would have gone, this would have given me an attack plus a re-attack. I can probably push a 4 dice attack through even against 2 block if I've got a re-attack in hand to knock Skolko out.
All right. And Brian, what do you have in hand there, just out of curiosity, for your remaining power card?
So I still have na. So I cycled out Mobum to Supremacy, but I only have 1 fighter remaining, so that went out, and that's ours. That was the card I drew. Quest end phase. Score this in an end phase if this fighter is holding an objective with the same number as the current round number. So objective number 3 is 3 hexes away from them. I've already made a charge. Can't do it.
Can't do it. What's the remaining power card in your hand, though? Just out of curiosity.
Phantom Fist.
Phantom Fist. Oh, all right. Hey, I like that illusion. I'm glad it's in here. That can help.
Stagger tech for the opportunistic reprisal.
Absolutely. Yeah. As well as some earlier 2 damage on fighters that could not grant you that otherwise. Mm-hmm. Besides, you got to give your knights some pretty gauntlets. Make them.
That was the hope.
Okay, so scoring here, we have Davy scoring first because Brian won that roll off and had him go first. So we've got. Why don't you walk me through if you score anything here, Davy?
Absolutely nothing.
All right.
I have a Surge in my hand. I have Trace the Ley Lines, which, again, that better positioning would have scored me if I'd been paying attention. And then I've got Morbid Majesty, which would have been great earlier, but is dead with this many people gone. So,
oh no! So
at this point, up 13-12, I was like, there's a chance. We're both on objectives. He doesn't. I know there's 2 quests in his hand, so there's only 1 he could score. If it's a 1 glory, like we're a true tie, and that's when he flips.
And Pure Carnage takes the game.
Yep.
Failed successfully.
As the ignoble knights do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about takeaways from the game. So, Brian, I know you're messing around with the Looncourt to, possibly fill that Warband homeless spot in your heart right now. After this game, or these 2 games, how are you feeling with them? What lessons have you learned?
So I definitely learned a lot. I tried to see how effective the quest, like trying to figure out what things Looncourt have going for them. Obviously, as a faction, they don't have a in-faction move, so I was trying to do a lot of the counterattack attack actions, or out-of-sequence attack actions, and just lean heavily into the hold objective, but also the quests. I have roughly 6 to 7 quest cards in this deck. I keep fluctuating. This game really made it clear that late round 2 and then 3, it becomes very difficult to score quests. I lean too heavy in them. I don't know where the sweet spot is. Gotta play with it. Because having quest surges in hand be dead because Nana or another one is unable to score and can't free up that assembly line, it really sucks. But some things were working. Nana did a lot of counter. It still affected Davy's play a lot. So there's a lot to consider with that. I think pick on a get your own size quickly became one of my favorites. I think early game there's a lot of
I think that's
there.
Great. Yeah.
They do also have another one in there that I didn't see. It's Looncourt Infestation. It's a Surge hybrid. This one did not come up. So it's Surge hybrid Score this immediately after an activation. If there are friendly fighters in another player's territory, if there are more friendly fighters in another player's territory than there are uh, that player's fighters in their territory. Not really what I was trying to score here. It was instead your warband holds 1, 2, and 3, but it's a 2 surge thing here. I definitely would have been pushing and used Dark Inversion differently for that. Those two I would consider keeping in my quest pool, being to glory. But opportunistic reprisal is, I think, a thirst trap. You have to bring a lot of tech in order to try and make it go off. You have to kind of predict who your opponent wants to make a charge with, and hopefully put the stagger on them, and then hope that they charge somebody, and that you'll have. There's a lot of conditions.
Right, and then
Seems really
in a
seems really good on its face. I think unless your warband brings innate stagger to effectively put stagger on people when they want, such as the snip pad paw in the claw pack, I
Mm.
think they might still consider it, but I'm not going to consider it.
in a best of three as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you stagger somebody, then that's going to immediately jump into their mind as a consideration, which um, you can lean into. You can be like, I don't actually have opportunistic in hand right now, but I'm going to spend this stagger to make them think I do,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to put it on this fighter that I know they want to charge with, and we're going to see if they're still willing to go through with it, knowing like, why else would they put a stagger here? Oh no, they've got
Yeah.
to have it.
Yeah.
So there's ways to play to its strength, but it does become much more broadcasted
What
past that
is
first
much
game.
more of a sin of that card is I found myself taking out pushes to put more stagger tech in.
No,
And
Oh.
Ryan,
yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
are you?
That's when I was talking with Davy after the first game, I was telling him I'm doubling down on a mechanic to see if I can make it work. I don't think
Mm.
it will. And it was opportunistic reprisal.
Got it.
Oof. All
I
Well,
took
right.
out redeploy.
Davey, I want to jump over to your thoughts on the game, but before I do, I wanted to highlight a takeaway that I gathered from watching the Looncourt this game. I think if I am up against the Looncourt and I see a quest carry over into the following activate or into the following round. So no move charge tokens are now on this fighter. There's just a quest card hanging out on them from before.
Mm.
I'm gonna think twice about taking that fighter out because, well, uh, I don't know. Maybe
Well,
that's wrong.
you're right because if I it depends on the quest that's on him,
Yeah,
but like let's say it's the quest that is run him down, right? So like if this fighter or run him down or pick on a get your own size, if that fighter charges and misses, like misses their attack, misses their chance to score that, often like that's an easy pickup. Like, okay, they got someone isolated in my territory. I'll kill them and get some easy glory. I'm gonna avoid doing that. Like, there's like a further head game there where I'm like, if I kill this guy, he gets those quests back in hand, and then he can put them back out. Especially the get your own size. That's I don't want to have him have
yeah,
another two glory surge available to be played out. Um, so while I think there's big problems with the quest mechanic, and Brian's build was heavy on quests, but didn't take any of the gambits that benefit from quests, right? Like the +2 move or +1 dice or +1 defense.
I
Um,
also took some of those out for the push tech, so
sure, yeah. I mean,
or
and they're
not the
not
push tech, the opportunistic reprisal and stagger
right.
tech.
I think you gotta. I think if you're going quests, you gotta go quests, and if you I I think you could. I think I probably put pick on a get your own size no matter what. Like that seems good enough to even stand on its own. But if you're going to go heavier like you did, 5+, I think maybe you think about some of the gambits that are pretty powerful in with it.
Yeah.
agree. And yeah, I was like thinking around what I had already thought of, and You helped steer that thought back into place. Yeah, I think it's really interesting where if somebody's charged. So I had mentioned not having to move or charge token, but no, the real head game comes into play when they have options that they can move that quest onto, and it's like, well, do I attack this charged out fighter with this quest and resupply it? Um, that's interesting. But let's move over to the Velmorn side of things. How did your flight with Velmorn go? What lessons came from these games?
Well, I think this is a lesson in taking a deck, some taking a deck that somebody else has built. Basically, like I pulled Chad's deck in, and I think if I had, it's if you're playing a deck that you haven't played before, it's the idea of you can't just net deck and then expect to be successful, right? I think I made several positioning errors in this second game that I think if I don't make those, I think I'm in a much better position to come out with the win. Some of them are misreading my own deck. Some of them is misreading Brian's deck, as we've talked about multiple times. Pure Carnage, not realizing that I was working against a 3 glory higher than I realized cap. But that being said, I liked Velmorn with the extra ability to get those inspires out early.
It felt like you had no problem getting those crits, but of course that's a matter of the dice. But there was a lot of help.
It is and it isn't. Like there was the way to get extra dice early, and then that feeds into giving upgrades, which give the chance to get other dice. Like there's the way to get those out, and then once those start cascading, like once you're inspired and Velmorn has a command counter, then you're actually pretty accurate. I think it's always going to be dicey, but there's maybe a couple tweaks I might make, but I would play this as is several more times before I do any of those, because I'm recognizing that some of it is just like I haven't played it enough for me to recognize, like, how to play it as intended before I start making adjustments.
Absolutely. I really like that takeaway, because sometimes we can get just kind of extrapolating off of pulling a deck idea down from someone else in the community. Sometimes you can get in a rut, like a playstyle rut, as to like how you particularly interact with the game and what cards you lean on to be strong. And when you grab a deck that somebody else has made, it forces you to think about what choices led to the deck that you're piloting, and it helps build a greater perspective and different build paths for you in the future. Yeah, I like that. All right, well, I think that's a wrap on our Looncourt versus Velmorn batrep. And I think I'll pass it over to Davy to walk us out.
I will happily do that. I hope you enjoyed this. We really like doing these. It's a little more work because we got to schedule the bat rep itself, and then do the episode. It's not as easy as just rocking up and talking. It's like a 3-stage thing. Play the game, do the bat rep, and then
also got to get good games.
Yeah, right. That's another thing that we do is. The extra personnel that we have on board now is a chance to make sure that you're getting a bat rep that is close and competitive, because we can kind of use our bigger team to play a number of games and make sure you get the ones that are more interesting rather than the blowout or whatever. If you want to use the decks that we tried out in this episode, they're going to be in the show notes. If you are a player that does not have everything, let's say you are all in on Velmorn or all in on those sweet Looncourt, Brian, I'm getting your promise here. We're going to provide Nemesis versions of the decks we use today. We good for that?
I will endeavor to do so. Unfortunately, opportunistic reprisal might be in there still.
Did you mean fortunately? Yeah.
Burst trap.
we'll we'll have both championship and Nemesis versions of this deck if you want to try them out in your own meta. But anything we do, we're very happy to get your feedback on that. If you liked it, if you didn't, let us know. If you liked it, it'd be a great help to us if you rated this podcast on whatever platform you use. If you didn't like it, give us a chance to correct it first. Get in touch with us. I really like to hear what you think we could do to be better. Give us a chance to fix that before you give us. But if you're happy with it, then hit that 5-star rating, and it helps us get the word out to more people. I'm still consistently surprised at the number of people who play Underworlds who haven't heard about some of the resources that are out there. You can check out more than just our content at themortalrealms.com. That is host to all the podcasts on our network. Coming up, we are going to lean into that nod to Chatting Crit, the late great podcast from the Steel City Underworlds crew. We are going to do a debate episode next. If you want to influence that, as soon as you hear this, let us know what you think we should debate. I'm going to give you two options. One, should championship format keep the current restriction of only including one plot card universal rivals deck per build? That is to say, if I include any cards from Daring Delvers, I cannot include any cards from Tooth and Claw or such. So we'll debate the two sides of that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the game, and should it change? And then our other option is to talk about how are we going to handle warbands going forward. We have 47 warbands at the time of this recording. That is a tremendous amount, and the majority of those are no longer available for purchase for new players. Is that a problem? Is that not a problem? That's what we're going to discuss if you vote for it. So you're picking between how to handle warbands, rotate or not, or how to handle plot cards in the championship format. If you want to hear one of those debates over the other, let us know. Gentlemen, are you ready for a little bit of our much feared, much reviled Flavatext quiz?
I'm a win.
Does it feature a holy hand grenade?
Can you count to 3? So this is a card. The one hint I'll give you is that it is a universal card that was included in one of the 2 decks involved today. There's a quote attributed to Aelin. You blinked.
I know exactly which one it is.
Opportunistic
Yes,
reprisal.
It is. I shouldn't have monologued there. I should just jump straight in with the answer.
I got you monologuing.
It's almost like Brian opportunistically reprisalled you while
I've been fixating on that damn
Womp womp.
womp womp.
Thirst trap.
Your recommended listening. This one's coming from Brian. Brian laid it on us.
I have recommended the song from Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail, the Camelot song.
This is for those very noble knights of the Looncourt. Yes. All right. I think that's about going to do it for us. Anybody got any last words before we close it out? Hearing none, I'm going to say, for what the hex, I've been Davy.
And I've been Skylar.
I've been Brian. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. I think that will edit in, and I think we're good to go.
All right.
Gents, we'll that may be a marathon episode for us.
Oh my
2 hours
gosh.
51 is where we're at. We had a long preamble, but it might be a record ep. We'll see.
I noticed at it was like 10:53. I was like, wait a minute, is that right? All right, starting out strong. Let's give me just that one today. Just the one.
Just the one. All
Just the
right.
one. Okay,
Use it up early, but that's okay.
that's it. That's all I need today. Oh god, hold on. Let me just take some sip of water. My throat's just really parched.